The neighborhood is in a excitement because we have a wonderful, wonderful artist with us. She's a native of Hutchinson, and her name is Maryellen Munger. And she said, "You can call me Mary," and I said, "Well, you can call me Mary too." Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm delighted. And you like a line from a poet by the name of Robert Bly, and he said, "It's never too late to be creative in your life."
Oh, I believe that. I think any individual, you can do what you want to, pursue what you want to.
Well, I think, don't you think so, particularly as you get a little older and your responsibilities hopefully lighten somewhat?
Yes, oh, definitely. That's true. Yeah.
Have you always been creative?
Well, as a child, I started out drawing. I love to draw trees, and the way they're rooted in the earth and just go up to the sky and keep on going. I just think they're beautiful. And my mother always encouraged me. And
see, don't you think that's a key? That if parents see a talent in their children, you were lucky that you had a parent that did encourage you.
Yes. I admire people who don't have that behind them, that push behind them, that do succeed, though.
Because the push makes it easier, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I think so.
I do.
Yeah.
I do too. What did you study art at K-State?
I did. I don't know why I went to K-State, except my brother and sister did. And
well, that's a good reason.
Right. And at that time, they didn't have a real strong art department, but I had a good drawing instructor. And
but you were still drawing at that point.
Yes.
And then you worked at the Nelson.
Yes, that was around
70s?
2000, I believe.
You retired?
Well, I just worked there for about 5 years. I think that was in, well, I think I retired in 2000. And that's when they decided to build the new addition onto the Nelson. And I didn't want all that hassling, having to park off campus and walk. Although,
what kind of children did you see come through there? Did you see talent?
Oh, yes, yeah, and anywhere from grade school on up through junior high school. And I worked mainly with the younger children. And
they did beautiful things sometimes.
Well, what exposure they had to all the wonderful arts. We'd walk around the halls with our drawing pads, and I'd sit on the floor with them, and it was just more fun.
It's wonderful. And, you know, isn't it nice in our neighborhood, as it were, there's so many nice opportunities for children and for adults.
I agree.
So I think that I have to say that I appreciate your sense of humor. And she talks about, well, there's one series that she did on Toulouse-Lautrec, and she calls them Two Loose Friends. That's T-W-O, loose friends. And how do you come up with all these fun thoughts?
Well, words have always been important to me in my art. In fact, sometimes words stimulate images. And it's just like with poets, sometimes images stimulate words. So we have a connection, artists and poets.
Do you, when you do a series, do you think of the fun satire first, or do you just find something that's of interest to you? How does it come?
Something of interest, and I think it just evolves. Toulouse-Lautrec has always been a favorite of mine, and I just loved the way his figures moved, and you could almost see them dancing on the page. And
well, and see, there's a person that came from a family of means, for sure, but was handicapped his whole life, and yet look at the beauty that he produced.
Really did.
Truly. And the picture of Parisian life at that time. I mean, it's extraordinary. I can understand. I think we need to look at some of Ms. Munger's work, because I think that in fact, I own one of her things. This one is called Father Knows Best. Talk about it a little bit.
Well, this was...
She likes politics, too, I need to tell you. I'm
Yes,
telling on
yes,
you. I'm telling on you, you know.
You're telling on me. Well, I
Yes.
think if one views my sculptures, they would probably get that idea.
Okay. This is Father who?
Father, well, this is George W. Sr. and his little son.
This is 1 and 2,
And
George H.W.
Of course, this was during a political area when George Bush was president. And, you know, I always thought that if I didn't laugh, I'd cry. And so...
oh, dear. Yes?
So that was one of the first pieces that I did. And then there were others. And
How did you, what is this made of? I think that your medium is also interesting.
it's ceramic. Out
But it
of
doesn't
clay.
look like it.
Well,
I own one of your pieces, and it doesn't, you have to touch it to be sure that it's ceramic.
the first pieces that I made when I was in a studio with Alex Cutchins, who I think was my mentor and got me into ceramics, and they were finished with a paint called Terra Sigillata, which is a clay-based paint. And then,
That does or does not need firing after it's painted on?
well, it needs firing.
After?
Well, you fire it twice,
Uh-huh.
and then paint it, and then fire it again.
Oh, I see, I see. So it's a
And-
third firing.
No, two. Just the first firing, and then it's the second
see.
fire.
Okay, okay.
Then you put the Terra Sigillata on.
Uh-huh.
And when he moved out of town, I decided I'd go back to my love of color, and that's in
See, because it's
acrylic.
bright colors. Beautiful. And so is the Father Knows Best in acrylic paint?
Yes, it is.
So the
Yeah.
colors are brighter in acrylic. Do you have to fire the acrylic?
No,
No.
you can't fire it. Or it would-
So it's already been fired and then you
Right.
paint it. But and Father gives us the impression that many fathers do. He's kind of holding his head.
Yes. I'm sure my father did that a time or two.
I'm certain that we could all relate to that. And you did another one about George.
Yes,
Number 2.
it's called The Decider As I Sees It. And this was from...
There he is. Now we have to tell him the title again. The Decider As I Sees It.
As I Sees It. And that's
Yes.
a direct quote from GWB.
Okay.
And it just took me, well, I guess my sense of humor kicked in when I heard that, As I Sees It. And so I did him as a big eyeball with a hat.
Well, you know, Maryellen, I really do believe I have to level another accusation at you. I think that in many ways you are a political cartoonist as well. You do cartoons really in clay.
Right. Well, they're first sketched on paper.
Do you first?
Oh, yeah. And all my pieces, I do a drawing first. And that kind of fixes the picture in my mind, how they move and what. But then again, they may turn out differently. So
I was going to ask you if the finished product always looks like the original.
not always, not always, no. And,
But you are a cartoonist, really, I think.
well, I love cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just but I think The Decider as I Sees It is fun, and you've done some other things as well. This one is fun, but you do not limit yourself to Republicans.
Well, no.
This is Billary.
I decided that I should let people know that I'm not just one-sided.
That's right. But I love this because Bill is in the front, but those are Hillary's hands.
Well,
Yes?
if you had a back view, she's attached to his back.
Yeah.
And when I made the piece, I couldn't decide who should be on whose back.
That's interesting.
So Bill was the dominant figure. At that point.
Do you believe that he was, or just appeared to be?
Well, he appeared to be to me at this time.
Right.
And then if you would take Hillary today, well, see
See,
he'd
it
be
changed.
on her back.
He'd be on her back. So you have to do another one now.
Well, maybe.
That's right. Well, and you called it Billary because the indication here was that together they really were one
They
person.
were a team.
They were a team.
Yes, they
And
were.
I think through all the trouble they've had, they still are.
Yes, I believe so too. Yes.
No, I do. what are you thinking when you decide to do something like Billary? What goes through your mind?
Well, I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of research, really, in all my pieces. Historical pieces like the Lautrec pieces. In Billary, I, read a lot of newspaper and listen, and a lot of magazines, and just observe. And I think that's probably the starting point of my pieces.
What kind of a person now? We're talking in the political realm now. We're not going to stay there forever, but we right now are talking in the political realm. What kind of a politician appeals to you? What do you? I mean, there are lots of them around, that's for sure.
Well, at this point in time in history, I don't think any of them appealed to me. I think we're
so you've quit producing
political pieces? No, I don't think I'd do another one for a while. Anyway,
that's interesting.
Although I might do the Kansas governor.
See, do you have to? So there has to be something about them or their philosophy that moves you.
Yes.
Either positively or negatively, whichever. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's truly interesting. But political things are not everything that you do. So I think that it would be unfair to pin on you the sobriquet of a political satirist. A satirist maybe, but not always a political satirist.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think in all my work, I have the belief that life is much too serious not to laugh at it. And I think that's the basis of a lot of my work.
Do you remember, she was married to Florence Ziegfeld, and she sang this song, Look for the Silver Lining. Do you remember?
Well, I remember the song.
I forgot what her name was. But I think that's what you're saying. You need to look at the brighter side of life, the funny side.
Right. Like I said, if you don't laugh, you'd cry.
That's right. We don't want to do that.
Right.
No, we don't want to do that. But you've done some other interesting things. And I think that you've done, you've done some drawings, and you've done this one I particularly like, and you call that, I forgot what we call it.
Democracy Now.
Democracy Now. Who is that person?
That's Uncle Sam.
I know, but sitting in his lap.
Well, that's GWB. That's still a political piece.
It is.
Yeah. And
tell me what you said there. You made a statement when you did that.
Well,
what?
I think he needs to listen to our founding fathers a little more.
And do you think Uncle Sam is trying to counsel him, perhaps?
I think so.
Now, this is also the bright colored paint. See, I love these bright colors. I just think.
Most of the pieces after I did the
Lautrec,
yeah, they're acrylic paint.
Well, I think they're more appealing because the colors are, and I noticed you like bright colors.
I do.
Too. Yeah, I do too. Okay, so we're still on the politicals. I think we probably need to move to Missed Liberty. She's kind of a segue. Talk about what statement did you make there?
Well, the world crisis, and the Statue of Liberty is such a symbol for our country, freedom of
Give
religion.
me your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. But her candle is down.
Well, I think she's a little sad the way things have gone at this particular time in history.
The world is in turmoil. That is for certain. But you know what's interesting, and I think I would be remiss. I think that the artist, the eye of the artist, is a picture of the world, because artists see the world through their own eyes, and often in a different fashion than others of us who are not expressive in the art forms do.
I think that's right. I know at this gallery, the gentleman who helped put my work up, he laughed at him, but then he said, "I think you're a little crazy."
That's okay. That's interesting.
Well,
but you see, tell me some of the responses that you've gotten, because you've been at this a while, and people do respond in different ways. Positive, negative,
Well, mostly it's positive. I think if it's negative, they don't say anything, you know. They don't challenge me to a political debate or something.
Well, but that's okay.
Oh, it is. I think,
know.
Isn't that wonderful? We live in a country where each of us can have our own thoughts.
Our own thoughts. And we have earned the right to disagree.
Too.
We have that right. We fought for the right to disagree. And I think it's terrific. And often, you know, when you see something and it kind of tickles your funny bone, you think about your ideas to make people think a little bit too, I would hope.
Well, I would hope so, you know. And I don't think people realize that there is a lot of research that goes into a piece, you know, a lot of reading and listening and just observing the world. And,
well, and that, because you read and you do the research, you form an opinion of the piece that you want. It's kind of like a funnel. A lot goes in and the piece comes out.
Let's hope so.
I hope so. I do hope so. That's right. Well, we need to look at some of the other things you've done, because now this is entirely different. This is Picasso's Lost Love, or Lover.
This was a funny story.
Tell the story, because I think it is funny.
Well, I heard a flash on the radio that this 78-year-old Parisian woman came forward and confessed that she had an affair with Picasso when she was 19. And I thought that was just hysterical. And the more I thought about it, I thought, I'm going to do her as Picasso's 78-year-old lover, Geneviève. So this is one, and the pieces in the background were the drawings that he had done of her.
Of her?
Yeah, her. You know, you never know.
When she was less than 78, I'd trust.
Oh, she was 19 at that time. And I also did I've done two of them, and this is the first one, the painting. And then I did another one with the same background, and then I did a ceramic sculpture of Geneviève, and she's about this big, and she's mounted onto the picture. And that was the first time I'd ever done a piece of ceramic and incorporated it into a painting.
That's interesting.
And
I looked at this too, and I thought, you know, as I have gotten older, sometimes I sit and think of that which was and that which might have been, and when I looked at that, I thought, I think she might be thinking of what was.
Well, she came out ahead because she sold her drawings for millions of dollars.
Big bucks.
Big
I remember
bucks.
reading that in the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big bucks. Well, I do like that, and I think that was so. Let's talk about, now you switched a little bit from drawing to three-dimensional expression. What caused you to do that?
Well, I was in a studio with a friend of mine, or no, I wasn't in the studio. I had this friend, and then she invited me to share a studio with her with two other guys. And the one fellow was Alex Cutchins, who had a major in ceramics.
So he encouraged you?
He encouraged me. He taught me everything I know about clay, because I'd never had a class on clay or ceramics.
But you've done this for quite a while, so it must have taken hold.
Well, I think I just fell in love with the feel of clay in my hands.
Yeah. That's interesting, because you can mold it.
You can mold it.
Yeah.
You can twist it and turn it and change
That's
it.
Right. That's right. You did one, as I recall, about Praise Dick, and that's flat, is it not?
Yes, it's a plaque that hangs on the wall.
And this is Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney. And that was the time, all the controversy about Halliburton, and I call it Hallibortion, and the oil industry, and the corruption that goes behind it all.
You know what this reminded me of? I had a smile because I thought when I saw that, I don't know how many of the folks have been to Lucas, Kansas to see Mr. Dinsmore's work in concrete that's all over all around his house, but he makes statements. His thing was bankers and big business, and you know he did this in a whole different time. But the Praise Dick reminded me of Mr. Dinsmore's contribution to the art of Kansas and the commentary on the politics and the politicians and the economics of the day. And he railed. It's wonderful. If you haven't been to Lucas, you need to go see Mr. Dinsmore.
I've read it in the paper, but I haven't been.
But
there.
that reminded me. That reminded me of the art that's in Lucas. So I thought that was. What are you doing now?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that question. After I finished the political piece, I needed to turn in a different direction because I was really tired of politics. And so I did self-portraits, and I don't think you have any of those.
Well, I do have one that's dancers.
No, these were busts.
Oh.
And they were quite large, about this big and this big. And the first one I did, self-portrait, I had a frog on my head and an owl sitting on my shoulder. Well, frogs are very symbolic for wisdom and good health, and every country in the world has a symbol for frogs. Well, I did 3 of those, and then I thought, how many self-portraits can you do? How many personalities do you have?
Yeah.
So I haven't done another one. And I'm writing in kind of limbo. I haven't done a piece of ceramic for quite some time.
Now, Maryellen, you have to.
There's something that I'm working on, and it's an altered book.
An altered book. What is that?
Well, it's when you take an existing book and tear out some of the pages, paste some of the pages together, and collage images that work with the words.
Really?
And I had a whole series of Time Life books from the 60s. And so I picked 2 characters to travel the world, and they were Alice and Freud. Alice and Freud go to Italy. Alice and Freud go to England and to France. And I've made 4 or 5 of those. I did that about...
Now, are these movable? You can change?
No, it's just an actual book that you pick up and read.
Oh, it's an actual, the pages turn.
Yeah, the pages turn.
Isn't that it? Well, that's a whole different direction for you.
But I've always loved collage. I've done that off and on for quite a few years.
Now, do you paint in the book?
Yes, I can do that. Actually, I want them traveling from page to page, so I take my watercolor crayon and make a road that goes from one page to the next page. And
could that be reproduced and published? Is there a story in turning the pages, or is it more an artwork?
That's what somebody suggested that I do, is that I take it to a printer and have limited editions made of the books, because it takes a long, long time to make them. And
I bet it does. And you've done 4 of them.
4, and actually the way I got started in that is that I went to a bookmaking class out at Steamboat, Colorado one summer. And there was a wonderful instructor and met some interesting people. And she invited me, and I had done one altered book at that time. And she invited me to participate in an international book show. And it won a purchase award, and it's in their library collection. And you can actually go online and look at it. And the thing, I didn't know that for a couple of years, that you could go online and look at it and turn it from page to page online.
Oh, isn't that most interesting? You just take your hand and sweep across, and the page goes this way, and the page turns.
Yes, that's fantastic.
Well, it always amazes me. 3-year-old kids know more about the technology of today than I do.
Yes.
So it's a very humbling experience. So I understand what you're saying.
So, so when I can't think of something to do, then I go back to my altered books.
So do you have to be creating something? You know, a lot of people say, well, I'm not happy if I'm not creating whatever it is they create. Does that bother you?
No, I keep busy. I did a workshop out at Village Shalom last week with my studio partner. And
about art, though.
Yes, it was for the residents out there, and we did collage, and they had a wonderful time. It's a great experience. And then 5 years ago, I taught an Alzheimer's program out there.
I read that about you. Well, how did you find that?
You know, I don't really realize whether somebody asked me or whether I read about it. But it was when the program Memories in the Making first started.
Mm-hmm.
And
how did you find their response to your art teaching?
Well, it was very different, you know, and I think the one thing that we tried to do was they would do watercolors or crayons, and we would put up a still life, flowers or something that would induce memory, memories.
Mm-hmm.
And often case that did work. They would mm-hmm. think of something in their childhood, mm-hmm. and I think in that kind of cognitive sense, it's easier to go back than forward.
Oh, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly for people who are in the process of becoming mentally mm-hmm. dimmer. You know, I think that's
and that
true.
was I did that for about 5 years, and that was very rewarding. That was just once a week.
See, but everything you do is related to the art.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's been my life, and you know, I have 3 wonderful children.
Are any of them artistic? You can say. It's okay.
Well, I think my youngest son is
a little better.
He put himself through graduate work at school by doing medical drawings. So I'd say...
Oh, that's a whole different talent. That's really extraordinary that he can do that. I mean, that's...
And the other 2 appreciate art.
See, and there you go. You have produced 2 appreciators and 1 participant. But see, I guess because I'm getting older as well, and I'm there. And I think those of us who, I don't want to become a dinosaur, and you don't either.
No. And you know, it's only a number. You're as young as you feel.
Exactly. But you're young if you stay involved and stay busy.
Oh, I think that's true in whatever field is your interest.
Yeah. And to me, that's the key. And I see my friends so often kind of just sitting there. And I think there's always something wonderful to do. And you have chosen to do that, whether it's helping Alzheimer's patients or people who are in a home for the elderly. I mean, you and I are both fortunate. We aren't there.
Oh, yes.
Yet. But we're trying to keep out of there if we possibly can. But I mean, and then you still are actively creating, and if you're not creating, you're thinking about it. So, I mean, to me, that's just extraordinary. I congratulate
you
and me, actually, because we're both moving about.
Right, and it's just being interested in the world around you, you know.
Exactly.
Whether it's art, music, literature, you know, it doesn't really matter.
No.
At all.
But, you know, in creating this art, you make the world nicer for all of us by poking a little fun at what we see, and everything isn't always so serious.
I agree.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. And you said, for future works, this is what you said. You said, I'll respond to the unknown, and that is what makes creating art so exciting for me.
I believe that. Yeah.
So you're going to have to think of some more, if not politicians, some wonderful people to, you know, laugh a little bit with. Not at, but with.
With, yes.
And like there's a difference. Yeah.
Well, there is a difference, yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, Maryellen Munger, what a pleasure it has been to have you on It's Our Community to talk about your life and your work and your future. So,
well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
I'm delighted. And we'll have to do it again soon. And thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure to have you visit. And we'll see you again soon. It's our community, you know, and these are our neighbors.